Hello, and welcome back to Star Wars Minute. It's the daily podcast where we analyze, scrutinize, and celebrate the Star Wars movies, 1 minute at a time. I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
I'm Alex Robinson from AlexRobinson.fun.
And we are wrapping up the credits of Solo, A Star Wars Party. We put on, we turned the house lights up, we put on Last Dance. The Star Wars Party is almost over.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
It's true. So today we're talking about minute 132 of Solo, A Star Wars Story. It starts with additional sound designer David Acord, and it ends with production assistant Faz Buffery.
That's a cool Star Wars name.
Yeah, Faz Buffery, the bounty hunter. But yes, we're still in the midst of Skywalker Sound at the beginning of this, and one of the names from Skywalker Sound reminded me of something that came up recently. There's apparently a whole podcast about it. But people who have the last name Null, so there's a Skywalker Sound head of production at Skywalker Sound is named John Null, not John Knoll. He was probably also
N-U-L-L?
N-U-L-L.
Okay. And
that sometimes can wreak havoc with being stored in a database. Because we had this problem. We had a subscriber. When I worked at a magazine, we had a subscriber with the last name of Null. And it was my job to process names a lot of the time for digital purposes. When you put somebody whose last name is Null into a database, you put their last name as Null, and basically it's like no record. So like then you can't pull that back because
weird.
It's like, blank. So like if you were talking to humans and you were like, I want to talk to John blank, and they'd be like, which John do you want? Fill in the blank. Like
that's weird.
And so there's apparently a whole podcast episode about it that I haven't listened to yet, but I was talking to some friends about it, that people with the last name Null tend to cause problems with, and of course there are best practices when it comes to databases for ways to manage that are, like if I'm having a problem with it, it means I'm doing something a little bit quick and easy. Sure. But, yeah.
How strange.
Null, John Null here, which also reminds me, remember that, that comic strip XKCD?
Uh-huh.
He did one about somebody named, somebody naming their kid, something, like
20
quote, semicolon, drop table, like something like some MySQL command that I forgot the exact syntax of it, but something that when you put it into a database without going that extra mile, like we should have been with John Null, if you just put them in there as is, when you ran a search for them, it would erase the entire thing.
Wow.
And so he did a comic about naming them that, and like, yeah, little Bobby Tables, we call them.
It's like biological malware.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, John Null made me think of that. Then I also, speaking of Johns, the score was mixed at 5 Cat Studios.
Which
I had to look that up because I was like, where is 5 Cat? What and where is 5 Cat Studios? And it turns out it's here in Los Angeles, and it is John Powell's kind of, I don't know if it's his home studio, but it's his personal studio. You go to their website and it's like, here's stuff by John Powell and his friends.
The 4 other cats.
And 4 other cats. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's 5 of them. 5 cats got together, built a studio. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Dig it.
I'm hip.
Do you reach, Herbert? 5 Cat Studios. So it was recorded. It's interesting to see all the musicians and stuff that they listed, and the choirs and all that. But then it all got recorded, then mixed to town at just somebody's house in LA, basically.
I do think it's very weird. Like you said, some of the people get like solo singers get mentioned, but like the whole the orchestra does not get, like the individual members of the orchestra whom you hear, no credits for them. That's baffling to me that every every 2-bit driver and guy who held a production assistant, like flagging people to the thing, got mentioned.
They helped. They helped.
But I'm saying, but if they get a mention, musicians should get a mention of it. They're literally, you can hear them in the film. So
yeah, I agree. Like the people who did like ba-ba, ba-ba, did not get listed in the credits, but Mr. Photochem over there, won't bring him up again.
Mr. They call me Mr. Photochem.
Hey, let's give some props to some Pete's.
Okay.
In the prop department.
Oh, perfect. Good start.
Supervising dressing props. Peter Watson. Set deck scenic painters.
Nice.
One of them is Peter Rhodes, Rhodes, like Rhodes. I can't say Rhodes anymore, but you know what I mean. Rhodes like a scholar.
Yeah.
Like
Rhodey from
like,
Iron Man.
James Rhodes. There you go. Like Iron Man's friend. Like War Machine.
Not the first War Machine. The second War Machine.
Who was the first War Machine?
Howard. They replaced him.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Terrence Howard, you mean?
Yeah, Terrence Howard.
Right. I thought you meant in the comics there was somebody who was War Machine before Rhodey was, and I was like, oh, who was
No.
War Machine? But no, you
comics.
Meant Terrence Howard.
What? What are you talking about? Comic books.
Senior props modeler, Peter Lee.
Mm-hmm.
And then two props modelers, not the senior props modeler, but two junior, not junior props modelers. They're just regular props modelers, like we were talking about, pre-viz, post-viz, viz.
Yeah. Your standard garden variety prop. What are they? Props
modelers.
Props modelers.
One of them is Peter Sellers, but with an A, Sellars.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is our former guest of the show and Swimmels member, Pete Fielding.
Oh.
The chairman. There are two. I got two more Petes here.
Okay.
I've got animatronic designer.
Okay.
Pete Hawkins.
Pete Hawkins. That's a good name.
Yeah.
That's a strong, solid name.
And
can I rewind a little bit?
Please.
Peter Sellers.
Peter Sellers.
Yesterday we had a lot of fun ribbing
With
Stephen
Saddam
King
Hussein.
and Saddam Hussein. Do you think Peter Sellers? Because I feel like Peter Sellers is like aging out as a reference.
Yeah.
So
I don't think
he died in 1980 or something. So like
it had to be later than that, I think. But maybe, I don't know. But yeah,
in the 80s, people, we'll say.
Yes. If you give your full name at Starbucks as Peter Sellers, they're not going to know or care. But if you give it to Stephen King or Saddam Hussein, they're going to know and they're going to care.
Yeah, that's a tougher. Peter Sellers, Saddam Hussein, and Stephen King walk into a bar.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one. Now, do you think his parents did that intentionally, even though their name was slightly different? They're like, oh, Sellers. You think it's
maybe
a family name?
They convinced themselves, but that because it was spelled with an A at the end,
it'd be different enough.
It would be different. Yeah.
Well, what about junior mold maker Peter Tyndall?
I think he can get away with it. I don't think people are going to confuse him with the other Peter Tyndells.
Right. Or is it Tyndall? And here's an interesting thing that I noted. Maybe it's because I am looking at like I said, I've got the international edition because of the 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But junior mold maker is MOULD. So I don't know if it's because it was mainly they were working in Britain, or these, like British mold makers get to be MOULD and Americans don't get to drop the U, or is it? Did the credits change if I'm watching this in the UK?
That is a very interesting question. Maybe it depends where the work was done. If they worked in the UK, then they're a mold.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, but if you work here, you're a mold maker.
Yeah,
you got to go over to London and earn your U.
Mm-hmm.
Should I? I'm not gonna scrub through and go to the credits live while we're doing it on Disney Plus or anything like that. But
that would be very unprofessional.
Although that is all my Petes for this. So
okay.
Well, maybe while you, I'm assuming that you have something to talk about. Maybe
I do have some things.
Maybe I will look up I'll get that going while you do that.
Well, one thing we talked about last week that was put a little stone in my shoe was the HOD.
HOD modeler.
Yeah. Do you know what that means? I looked it up.
I feel like I do, but then I don't. So no, I'll say no.
No, it's an I don't remember if it's an acronym or an abbreviation. I don't remember what the other one is. It's not an acronym. Anyway, it stands for head of department.
Oh yes, I was told that. Once.
Department. So that's what the HOD is, and people can let us know in the comments if that is an acronym or a abbreviation. Initialism. Yes. So one thing I noticed in this minute is we get the credits for the assistants to the various bigwigs who worked on the movie, and you can tell they're bigwigs because they're identified as Mr. or Ms. or whatever. It says like assistant to Mr. Howard, assistant to John Kasdan. So when I was wondering, like, who are these people? Like specifically, I was
some
wondering.
Of the names I didn't know who they were.
They're all the ones you don't recognize are all producers of various stripes. So, like weirdly, like I assume Woody Harrelson has some kind of assistant, but he or she does not get credited in the movie. So it's only like executive assistants, not like hired help assistants.
Yeah, but still, most of the time, I think lead actors' assistants would get thrown in there, right? Unless maybe it's only if they're like executive producer. If they got like a vanity credit in there, then they got to.
Yeah. So my question was, is it the kind of thing where Ron Howard's personal assistant in this film was Tristan Battersby?
Okay.
And I was wondering, Ron Howard does a lot of stuff. He makes a lot of films. We discussed last week. He has over 1,000 producing credits to his name. Is Tristan Battersby always his assistant? That would seem like a logical thing. Like if I have an assistant, they would basically follow me around from project to project because I would like either that or they just kind of graduate out of it or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But so Tristan Battersby has worked with Ron Howard before. Peculiarly, she was also Harrison Ford's assistant on Blade Runner 2049 and on The Force Awakens. I thought that was kind of an interesting. And also, Josh Whedon's assistant on the ill-fated Justice League, his ill-fated Justice League thing.
Well,
so
he definitely needed some assistance on that one. So she earned her pay that day.
So
I just update. Went through the credits here.
Pete, do we have a Mulder update?
The junior mold maker Peter Tyndall has his U on Disney Plus. So it is. The credits are not location specific. So
got it.
There we go. Noted.
Good to know. So they also had the assistant Rebecca Karch, who was the assistant for Lord Miller, and I was wondering, like, they get the heave ho. Does that mean the assistant also gets the heave ho?
Right.
And turns out they do. But the good news is that Lord Miller have worked with Rebecca Karch several times. She was on the Lego Batman movie, and in Lego movie. Agreed. The second the second Lego movie, she was listed as an associate producer. So that seems to be a case of, I assume associate producer is higher up in the pecking order than personal assistant. So or assistant. It doesn't say personal assistant. It just says assistant to. So, and my last assistant note.
I'm assuming that's kind of like a PA, like a production assistant, but just specifically tied to that. So instead of being like the person who's out, like, telling people they can't walk on the sidewalk. Yeah. Or, putting out cones or whatever, they're the person, their job is just to, hang out with the producer and see whatever they need. So I would be very interested actually in talking to someone about what the job actually entails. So, Rebecca, Tristan, if you're out there, give us a call 8-Day Greedo. Let us know what it was like. The last one I have a note on is Mr. Kasdan's assistant. Which Mr. Kasdan?
Doesn't say. That would be Katie Hargrove, who, interestingly, since Solo was made, she was a one on Jeopardy in March of 2022. She was a Jeopardy contestant, and she won $19,000 over 2 days. So, good job,
it's the same
Katie
one?
Hargrove. It is the same one. So go figure.
Nice.
Yeah, if you apparently, I guess not surprisingly, every single person who seems to have been on Jeopardy has there's a Jeopardy file, like a Jeopardy Wikipedia, where every person who's been on, they tell you what they won, a brief bio, and all that stuff like that. So, congratulations to Katie Hargrove on her $19,000 win. Have you ever applied to be on Jeopardy? I think you'd be a good Jeopardy person. No interest?
I haven't. Not that there's no interest. I just haven't. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not. I don't know. I don't know if I would make that. I feel like there's an extra level there that I might not be good at. Well, I don't know. Tough to tell. I mean, I can hang with some of the people that we know that have been on Jeopardy. So it's
who do we know that's been on Jeopardy?
Elliot Kalin is on Jeopardy. You don't know him, but my friend of mine who used to run trivia in New York that I used to go to all the time. I've gone with Wyszynski. Wyszynski should be on Jeopardy too. Greg and I went to this guy's trivia when we were in New York from time to time, independently and together more than once. Tony Hightower. Hi, Tony. He was on Jeopardy. A couple of other, I'm forgetting somebody.
When Elliot was he on regular Jeopardy or was he on Celebrity Jeopardy?
No, he was on regular. He's not, we forget that podcast world is not real world.
Well, I mean, but he was like a writer for The Daily Show and stuff. Yeah. He could have been on it in that context.
Sadly, we live in a world where writers aren't celebrities for most people. Unless you're Stephen King.
You're right.
You got to pull double duty in the digital art department.
Maybe he was researching a book on the horror. He was going to do a horror movie set in the...
Elliot is a celebrity in our world, in our heart, but not to TV. He's not a draw to most TV goers.
I tried Elliot.
I know. I support that, but I just don't think it would happen. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So if that's all our credits stuff, I was going to bring up the topic I kicked till today.
Fine, bring it up.
Well, it's like what if.
No,
people love what if scenarios.
Oh, yes. What if Dracula bit Wolverine?
Wow.
Would his healing factor be able to cure the vampirism immediately, or would he become a vampire?
Wow.
And then if he did become a vampire, would he be able to go out in the sunlight because his healing factor could heal?
I'm going to say he would still become a vampire. Because I feel like vampirism is a supernatural thing. It's a magic basically. So it would not be fought off by his healing factor.
Okay. But then once he is, so if he is a vampire with a healing factor, can he go out in the sun and stuff like that? Can he get staked in the heart and recover?
Well, I don't think he'd be staked in the heart, only because he has an adamantium skeleton, and that's probably like how would he get through it? But oh boy, I would say perhaps if you did somehow manage to stake him in the heart, it would kill the vampire part of Wolverine, but then his biological body would then kick in, and he would just be a human. He would just be returned to mortal form.
You mean a mutant?
Mutant.
Homo superior.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes. Can he go in the sun? I will say yes, but it would be uncomfortable because he would constantly be like he would just have the feeling of like a sunburn all the time.
Right. All right. And then let's write this. Or did somebody else? Somebody already wrote this one, right?
Wolverine has to have fought a vampire at some point.
Well, they did. Remember, the X-Men fought Dracula in like the early 80s, I think.
Yeah. The more I read whenever I reread Chris Claremont's X-Men, it always seemed like he was just taking whatever was popular at the time and just, now the X-Men fight Alien. Oh, and now they fight this other thing that's going on. So here's my what if scenario. What if let's pretend that Star Wars the film has never happened.
Okay.
Let's
see you later.
All right. Well, let's pretend that Solo was the first in a series of films, which would then culminate, a la the Avengers. So it would culminate in the big crossover episode, which would be Star Wars would be the big thing where you brought Solo and all these characters together into one story. So let's pretend, that it's like the first Avengers movie.
Okay.
What would the subject of the other entries in the standalone Star Wars stories be?
Right.
Keeping in mind you're setting up what happens in Star Wars. Like if it's going to be like Solo, everything has to be dovetailed together neatly to basically end with the events of Star Wars.
Right. So you would have to have a Princess Leia. You would have like essentially the first, instead of Rogue One, you would have essentially like the first episode of the Star Wars radio drama.
Right,
as a movie.
Focusing on Princess Leia's
stealing the plans and
diplomacy and
her, pursued by rebel agents and all that stuff.
And the other rule is that much the same way that everything Han Solo says in Star Wars is explained in the Solo film, Kessel Run, the ship, all that stuff like that. Everything we know about Princess, everything she refers to or would have to be depicted in the film. So, for instance, because I'm assuming that Darth Vader and Princess Leia met before Star Wars, because he says, you weren't on any mercy mission this time. Like it implies that there's some kind of
be so bold. She obviously knows them.
Yeah. So there would have to be a scene in the film. Which works with the sort of political thing that you're talking about.
But it wouldn't be like, it would totally be like they meet at, like the Senate or something like that. Because he's in Palpatine's booth.
Yeah. Just like at the opera.
In her, diplomatic mission, that would be her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stinky Tarkin. She'd have to be Tarkin and be like, ooh.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like maybe Tarkin just finished doing some heavy yard work and stuff when he meets Princess Leia and he's all sweaty and gross.
Or that would be like somebody else, like Captain Antilles or something. That's just like, oh man, have you ever you ever talk to Tarkin real close? Like he smells. And Leia being like, really? So somebody else brings it up to her, and then when she doesn't know she doesn't even notice it. But then when she sees him, she's like, oh, I got that I got that cudgel that I can use.
Yeah, totally.
And obviously the love interest in that would be Dutch.
That's right.
Hutch Dutch.
Yeah. I was even thinking it could be building up to the Senate. Like maybe a part of the film would be that they're talking about dissolving the Senate and stuff. Because then in Star Wars, we've learned that the Senate, in fact, has been.
Oh, yeah, totally. That would be the last. Polluted. Maybe that would be.
The droids would have to be in it.
The last. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, would the droids just be in the Princess Leia movie? Yes. They wouldn't get their own movie.
I thought about it, but I felt like too much of it would like, I mean, it could be like droids where they have all sorts of crazy adventures and then just wind up with Princess Leia.
Right.
But,
so yeah, Solo, Leia, Obi-Wan. Would you do Obi-Wan and Luke? Would you do like essentially what we thought the Obi-Wan TV show was going to be? Would you do that as like a one-off movie?
Well, Luke is actually the one I had the most, because Luke is the one.
Luke, I couldn't even think of what Luke would be. I was going to skip Luke because I don't think he would get his own movie.
No,
What's
I think
he's just hanging out on a farm. But yeah, then it could just be
true.
American Graffiti.
I was supposed to say, I called it Anchorhead Graffiti because it would be, you'd have to show, basically you could even do the same exact structure of American Graffiti, where it's like Biggs and all those guys are getting ready to leave town and this is their last night on the planet. So, you could have him bullseyeing Womp Rats because he refers to that.
Beggar's Canyon.
You have to have Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru lying to him about who his father was. He was navigator on a spice fighter. Establish that he's a good pilot. That's of course,
the best bush pilot in the galaxy.
Yeah,
Again,
exactly. So,
this is like the other episode. Maybe this is the first episode of the first couple of episodes of the radio drama are these exactly what we're talking about, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a Han Solo one by itself, but this would be a good companion to that then.
Kenobi's the tough one. Well, Obi-Wan is the tough one, I feel like. Because it seems like once you get to the stuff, all the stuff Obi-Wan talks about is all stuff that happened with Anakin, where he fought Darth Vader and all that stuff.
Right.
So maybe you could have basically almost like Revenge of the Sith would almost be like the Obi-Wan film. You know what I mean? Because you're just basically showing what happened. Although I would make it where you didn't know that Anakin turned into Darth Vader.
Right.
Like Anakin, you would see Anakin fall into the lava pit. Kenobi leaves, and that's the end of it. That way, when he does show up, and you do learn, it's still a shock that this is actually Anakin in this getup that he's in.
Right.
So, and to throw things off a little bit, I was going to propose a Greedo film.
I thought about that for a second.
Because then when he shows up, you're like, oh, it's Greedo. We finally going to find out what happens to him, and then he gets killed instantly.
Right.
Well, I was originally going to say a Boshek film, because that would be even more of a fake out, because people would be like, what? That was it? Boshek was barely in it. He didn't do anything. He did nothing. So, anyway.
Maybe a Wedge movie.
Oh, a Wedge.
Because that sets up, then you get the pilot thing, so that when you see, some of those other guys that you see at the end would be in that.
Oh, yeah. Well, you could even do like a maybe Wedge and Porkins together, kind of, a bunch of the pilots like on a crew kind of
Pedge,
thing.
Workins. Which would it be? Pedge, I think.
Pedge, Workins.
Mm-hmm.
What's Wedge's first name?
That is his first name.
Oh, that's right. Wedge Antilles.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay. And Jack Porkins. So it would actually be like Jedge.
Jedge. Or Weck. No. Yeah, Weck. Jedge. I like Jedge.
Jedge.
My name is Jedge.
So yeah, so there you go. So there's some food for thought. I really like the American Graffiti Anchorhead idea. So there we go. That's everything for minute 131, unless you have something else.
No, it's the 132.
Sorry, not minute 131, 132. You're closing out this episode.
I am. Am I? I am. Look, I'm doing it now. Well, we if you can think of somebody else that we're forgetting that would be one of the Avengers of Star Wars, find us. The best way for us to talk about it right now is probably to find us on social media. Go to Star Wars Minute, at Star Wars Minute on Twitter, at the Star Wars Minute on Instagram, the Star Wars Minute Listener Society on Facebook, which is starwarsminute.com/Facebook. You could go to Reddit, go to our Star Wars Minute and talk there about the episodes and stuff. And hey, we do have a TikTok at the Star Wars Minute, but it's only about 2 things there right now, I think. So maybe we'll come back and do some of those in the hiatus. But
we'll surprise everyone.
Yeah.
With our Star Wars
Minute if you can think of one, let us know over there, and then we'll be back tomorrow with a brand new
Star Wars Minute.